feeling like politics has become less about logic and more about blind loyalty. You're not imagining it. Political movements throughout history have used psychological manipulation to trap people in belief systems they can't escape. This isn't just about one leader, one party, or one country. It's a pattern that repeats over and over again. The most dangerous part? The people trapped inside these belief systems don't even realize it's happening to them. For centuries, philosophers, political thinkers, and psychologists have studied how leaders manipulate public perception, silence dissent, and build followings that will defend them no matter what they do. Today, we're breaking down 5 of their most important lessons, starting with one of the earliest warnings about how people become prisoners to false narratives. Be sure to watch until the end, because understanding these lessons will help you recognize manipulation tactics used on you every day and show you how to protect yourself from them. Lesson 1. Plato, the allegory of the cave. Anyone who has seen the light will have great difficulty getting people still in darkness to believe in it. Around 375 BCE, Plato wrote The Republic, warning that most people live inside a carefully crafted illusion, mistaking their narrow perception for reality. In his famous allegory of the cave, he describes prisoners who have been chained in darkness since birth, able to see only shadows on the wall, projected by unseen forces behind them. Since they've never known anything else, they believe these shadows are reality itself. But one prisoner escapes. He steps outside the cave and sees the real world for the first time, the full truth beyond the shadows. It's overwhelming. He realizes that everything he once believed was an illusion, shaped by those controlling what he could see. He returns to free the others, but instead of being grateful, they reject him, mock him, and even turn violent. They refuse to believe that their world is false, because it's all they've ever known. This is exactly how media bubbles and political echo chambers work today. People who consume only one source of information surround themselves with only like-minded voices and never challenge their assumptions, become prisoners of their own reality. The more they hear the same message repeated, the more real it feels, even if it's completely disconnected from the truth. And when someone tries to show them another perspective, they lash out. Instead of considering the possibility that they've been misled, they attack the messenger. They would rather stay in the cave than face the unsettling truth that their beliefs might not be what they thought. This is why facts alone don't change minds. If someone has spent years being conditioned to see the world a certain way, simply showing them the truth won't work. The cave is comfortable. The real world is painful. It's easier to call the person exposing the lie a traitor, a fool, or an enemy than it is to question the entire foundation of their reality. Plato's lesson is just as relevant today as it was over 2,000 years ago. Those who control the narrative control the way people see reality, and the longer someone stays in the cave, the harder it is to step outside. Lesson 2. Aristotle, the dangers of demagogues. A tyrant must put on the appearance of uncommon devotion to religion. Subjects are less apprehensive of illegal treatment from a ruler whom they consider God-fearing and pious. Aristotle was Plato's friend and student, learning under him in Athens before developing his own political theories. While he agreed with Plato on the dangers of illusion, Aristotle focused on how rulers manipulate the masses to gain power. In his work, Politics, he identified one of the greatest threats to democracy: the demagogue. A demagogue doesn't win power through wisdom or sound policies. They win by manipulating emotions. Instead of engaging in serious debates or solving real problems, they fuel anger, fear, and division, convincing people that only they can protect them from some looming enemy. Aristotle warned that once people start following a leader out of emotion rather than reason, democracy is already in decline. We see this constantly today. Politicians don't want rational voters. They want devoted followers who will hate whoever they tell them to hate. Having hatred in common can be more powerful than shared values, and dictators know this. They don't unite people with hope. They unite them with a common enemy. Instead of discussing policy, they fuel outrage. Instead of fixing problems, they create false crises to justify their own power. They distract the public with anger, fear, and tribal loyalty, while they consolidate control behind the scenes. Does any of this sound familiar? Most people don't realize when they're being played. They think they're choosing a side, when in reality, they're being controlled through emotion. Just like his mentor did, Aristotle saw it coming over 2,000 years ago, and nothing has changed. If democracy is built on reason, then demagogues thrive by destroying it. Their power depends on keeping people angry, divided, and afraid, because the moment people stop reacting and start thinking, the illusion falls apart. Lesson 3: Cicero, How Tyrants Manipulate the Masses. A nation can survive its fools, and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. By 44 BCE, Rome was unraveling. What had once been a thriving republic, built on laws and civic duty, was being dismantled from within. Cicero, one of Rome's most skilled orators and political thinkers, watched in real time as leaders manipulated the masses to seize power. In On Duties, he warned that tyrants don't take control through brute force alone. They convince the people to hand them power willingly. This is done by manufacturing crises. Cicero saw how corrupt politicians exaggerated threats, created enemies, and claimed that only they could protect Rome from chaos. They demanded temporary emergency powers, always insisting that the danger was too great for the usual democratic process. But once those powers were granted, they never gave them back. It happened with Julius Caesar. He built his support by presenting himself as a protector of the people, someone who could restore order to a fractured society. His growing authority was excused because people were too tired of instability to fight it. By the time they realized what had happened, the Republic was already gone. This cycle has repeated itself throughout history. Leaders use fear and division to expand their power, claiming it's necessary for stability. Governments increase surveillance, silence dissent, and pass sweeping emergency measures that never seem to expire. The public, convinced that the alternative is disaster, accepts it all without question. Cicero tried to warn his fellow Romans, but it was already too late. The lesson remains the same today. Once people allow fear to override their judgment, they become willing participants in their own oppression. Freedom is rarely taken all at once. It's given away piece by piece, until there's nothing left to defend. Lesson 4: Hannah Arendt, The Cult of Personality and Totalitarianism. Before mass leaders seize the power to fit reality to their lies, their propaganda is marked by extreme contempt for the facts. By the mid-20th century, the world had already witnessed the rise of multiple totalitarian regimes, from Nazi Germany to Stalinist Russia. Hannah Arendt, a German-born political philosopher, dedicated her work to understanding how these systems took hold. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, published in 1951, Hannah made a disturbing observation. Before authoritarian leaders fully seize power, they first destroy the public's ability to recognize truth. They don't do this by convincing people of one single lie. Instead, They overwhelm society with so many falsehoods, contradictions, and distortions that people become exhausted. After hearing so many conflicting stories, people eventually stop trying to figure out what's real at all. Once that happens, the leader's word becomes reality, because truth no longer matters. We see this today in the fire hose of falsehoods, where political figures flood the public with conspiracies, misinformation, and shifting narratives. The goal is not to create an informed society, it's to make people so disoriented that they give up on the idea of truth altogether. Instead of verifying facts, people choose a version of reality based on loyalty. Once this mindset takes hold, it doesn't matter how many times a leader is caught lying. Their followers will defend them anyway. At that point, it's no longer about facts. It's about identity. Arendt understood that when truth collapses, democracy follows. A society that no longer agrees on basic reality cannot have meaningful debate, hold leaders accountable, or prevent corruption. When everything is fake, power becomes the only thing that matters. Lesson 5. Robert J. Lifton, The Psychology of Cults. Totalist environments demand purity, creating an us versus them mentality that punishes doubt and rewards blind obedience. In 1961, psychiatrist Robert J. Lifton published Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, a study on how totalitarian governments, religious cults, and extremist movements brainwash their followers. He identified a chilling pattern. These groups don't just demand obedience, they make it psychologically impossible for followers to leave. The first warning sign: demonization of outsiders. Lifton found that in cult-like systems, people are taught that their movement is pure and righteous, while outsiders are dangerous, corrupt, or subhuman. By creating an us versus them mentality, the leader convinces followers that questioning the group is an act of betrayal. Another tactic is the punishment of doubt. In cults, expressing skepticism is met with ridicule, suspicion, or even exile. Political movements use this exact same approach. If someone dares to question the leader or ideology, they are labeled a traitor, a sellout, or worse. Lifton also documented loyalty tests, where followers prove their devotion by attacking outsiders or publicly declaring allegiance. The stronger their devotion, the more they are rewarded with acceptance and belonging. Over time, this conditioning makes it nearly impossible to break away, because leaving the movement means losing your entire identity. This is why some people will defend their political leaders no matter what they do. It's not about logic, it's about survival. They have been conditioned to believe that stepping away means betraying everything they are. Lifton's work reveals an unsettling truth. Political movements can turn into cults, and once someone is trapped inside, rational debate won't bring them back. If questioning your own side is treated as an unforgivable sin, then you are not in a political party. You are in something far more dangerous. From Plato of ancient Greece to modern psychology, the mechanics of power have remained the same. Throughout history, leaders, movements, and governments have used the same psychological tactics to manipulate people into blind loyalty, emotional obedience, and the rejection of critical thought. Plato warned that people trapped in illusions will resist the truth, even violently. Aristotle saw how demagogues use fear and division to manipulate the public. Cicero watched tyrants manufacture crises to justify seizing power. Arendt exposed how totalitarian regimes destroy truth itself to take control. And Lifton showed that once political movements adopt cult-like behaviors, followers will defend them at all costs, even to their own detriment. The tactics haven't changed because human nature hasn't changed. Every time people think they're too smart to be manipulated, history proves them wrong. These strategies work because they exploit the same human weaknesses: fear, tribalism, and the desire for certainty. And that's the trap. Manipulation isn't about forcing people into submission. It's about making them believe they chose it. If you want to protect yourself from these tactics, you have to start questioning everything, especially the things that feel comfortable. If your political beliefs are based on fear, anger, or loyalty instead of rational thought, it's time to ask why. If your leaders tell you that questioning them is dangerous, that's a sign you should start asking even more questions. The only way to break free is to start thinking for yourself. The first step to breaking free is recognizing the trap. The second step is deciding whether you have the courage to escape it. The world is full of deception and systems designed to keep you angry, afraid, and obedient. If you're tired of being lied to, manipulated, gaslit, and used as a pawn, keep questioning everything. The moment you see the game for what it truly is, you can stop playing it. Subscribe for more insights on philosophy, psychology, and breaking free from the systems designed to control you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.